Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farbach. As winter draws closer, Ukraine is set to receive a crucial supply of U.S. liquefied natural gas via Greece, a lifeline at a time when Russian attacks continue to target its energy infrastructure. The agreement between Greece's DEPA and Ukraine's Naftogaz is designed to keep the country's gas system stable through the cold months. Now, to help us understand the significance of this deal for Ukraine and the wider region, we're joined by Taras Kuzio, professor of political science at the National University of Kyiv-Mohyla Academy. Good to have you back on TVP World.
Good morning.
Taras, tell us a little bit about the significance of this deal between Greece and Ukraine. How much does this plug the gap, and how quickly can these deliveries really begin?
Well, I mean, I think those kinds of details are probably going to be quite classified because of potential Russian sabotage inside Europe, which we've seen has taken place, and also because of Russian bombing attacks. But I mean, this they would have to come either via Poland from the Baltic Sea or somehow through the Black Sea via Odessa. There has been talk about importing U.S. liquid LNG for quite a while. The United States under Donald Trump has sought to replace Russian LNG supply to Europe with American LNG. Some European countries don't particularly like that idea because American LNG is more expensive. But we have the complete irony, don't we, that Ukraine is importing American LNG, whereas many West European countries, like, for example, France and the Netherlands, continue to import Russian LNG. So Ukraine, which is bordering Russia, is not importing Russian LNG, but West European countries are. So we have a bizarre situation in Europe where European Union leaders, on the one hand, support Ukraine with financial aid for the economy, for trade, and for military arms. But on the other hand, they actually provide more financial money to the Russian budget because they continue to import and buy Russian energy. This is bizarre when if Ukraine can import American LNG, why can't European countries?
Yeah. And at the same time, the EU is also set to ban Russian LNG by 2027 as well. So that's another thing playing into all this. I want to ask also, let's hear just quickly.
So that's 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
That means that they still provide money to the Russian budget, which can be used to for its military against Ukraine and in hybrid war against Europe for 5 years, from 2022 to 2027. I think this is actually quite disgusting on the part of, and it's quite hypocritical on the part of the European Union.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are many things. I mean, if we talk about hypocrisy, I think we won't have enough time to go through all those things today, but let's narrow in on this deal one more time. Let's hear what President Zelensky had to say about it just recently. Let's roll that now for you and our audience.
Today we have an extremely important agreement on gas supplies to Ukraine. In fact, every night now the Russians are striking our infrastructure, most of all, our energy infrastructure. Most of the power plants in Ukraine, our gas production, our thermal power plants have become targets for missiles, ballistic missiles and drones. Our agreements with Greece today are an important part of the large energy package that we have prepared for this winter to provide Ukraine with gas. I would like to thank you again, dear friend, and thank your team and companies for the fact that we can do this. Gas supplies will begin in January, and it is important that our first agreements will be implemented in the first quarter.
Right, so we heard President Zelensky there acknowledging and thanking the Greeks there. I'm just curious, because as you already mentioned, this is really only possible due to American LNG gas. I mean, Greece serves as a partner in that, but how much is this subject to Donald Trump and American political will, and can it hold really until March?
Well, I mean, I think Donald Trump, of course, you're right to ask this question because Donald Trump changes his mind more often than we change our socks. But at the same time, I think he's interested in the financial, economic aspects of the United States becoming again. He's removed environmental obstacles to America expanding its energy footprint and hoping to basically export to the European market, replacing Russia and maybe some other countries. I mean, there's also Azerbaijan, Norway, who have taken Russia's place. I think the Greek case is fascinating because, again, we have, I'm sorry to go back to the same problem of double standards. The Greeks, on the one hand, are facilitating this export of American LNG to Ukraine. But on the other hand, Greece has been massively involved in the shadow fleet. Many of these vessels that Russia is using to export Russian oil are actually Greek or Greek registered. And so Greece, again, is one hand is helping Ukraine, although very little on the military side. And on the other hand, it's actually making a lot of money from this illicit trade of Russian oil. So again, we have a very mixed picture on the European continent. But this is good. My only concern about President Zelensky is that with this current big corruption scandal in Ukraine, is that a lot of that relates to the money that should have been used by the Ukrainian government to assist in protecting Ukrainian utilities, gas, electricity, etc., was actually stolen. So I think Zelensky is trying to improve his image, but he has a lot of questions to answer about why this money was not used in the last 2 years to build protection for Ukrainian utilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, of course, this is still circulating around as we're still dealing with, as you said, the corruption scandal. But also, yes, you mentioned an interesting point there with protection. That's what I want to ask you next, because if we're looking at this LNG deal and the pipelines that will go from Greece through the Balkans, if we're looking at Bulgaria, if we're looking at Romania, but then it also goes into Moldova before it reaches Ukraine. How much of a concern here? I mean, given that Moldova is in itself a bit of political, has its own issues there with potential Russian involvement there, how safe is this pipeline going to be?
I think we have a major problem in the sense that Russia has been conducting hybrid warfare in Europe for 10 to 15 years. NATO and European Union countries have been ignoring this. I mean, as far back as 2014, the Russian secret services blew up ammunition dumps in the Czech Republic, which were destined to be exported to Ukraine. The reality is that if in a potential future war between NATO and Russia, all of these utilities, nuclear power stations, electricity generators in the European Union, in NATO member countries, including in Poland, are going to become targets. And it's very difficult to provide air defense for every single, generating station, power station. It's just very costly, and we saw that with the influx of 19 Russian drones into Poland, how even small items can be potentially a threat to a country. So I think that is something that is going to be on the minds of, I think, many people, because we can see how future war is going to happen by looking at what's happening in Ukraine today. In the case of Moldova, I think it's a bit exaggerated about its potential, Russian influence. I mean, after all, Russia, to get to Moldova, Russia would have to go through Ukraine. Moldova has no border with Russia.
But you mentioned also as well, though, those hybrid attacks, which we've seen on the rise in those countries, across the board, right?
Yeah. I mean, hybrid attacks can happen anywhere. I'm surprised myself that Ukraine, maybe with the help of Romanians and Moldovans, haven't actually just destroyed the Russian separatist region of Transnistria, where there are only about 1,500 very badly equipped Russian troops, and that is certainly, and which has been around since the early 1990s, and that certainly is a Russian kind of base for these kind of hybrid attacks, but hopefully Romania is helping Moldova deal with these questions on intelligence and countering Russian activities. So these kinds of problems are going to persist. Russia is not going to end its daily attacks on Ukraine and its use of hybrid warfare throughout Europe.
Right. So it's something, again, that will be on the list of many, many things as this deal takes shape. We'll have to see and hope that there won't be any more of these hybrid attacks. But of course, we can't rule that out. We'll see how this all plays out. Look, thanks for that very comprehensive insight. Really appreciate it very much this morning. Our guest here, Taras Kuzio, much appreciated.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks. But as ever, there's much more here on TVP World, so don't go away.